desire as described by Kojève. This is Kojève's Introduction à la lecture de Hegel. So I read this for my class on Hegel, the phenomenology of spirit precisely, and I thought I'd just share with you this paragraph where he describes human desire. I'll read it in French, I'll translate it, and then after that I'll just, have a bit of a commentary to explain things as we go along. So let us begin. Page 13. Le désir humain, ou mieux encore, anthropogène, constituant un individu libre et historique, conscient de son individualité, de sa liberté, de son histoire, et finalement de son historicité. So the human desire, or better still, anthropogène, constituting a free and historic individual, conscious of his individuality, freedom, history, and finally of his historicity. So here he describes human desire as something that's anthropogène, so something that is specific to humans and not animals, constituting the free and historic individual. Free here is the idea of autonomous. This is a lot more to go into in terms of like how it is that we arrive at autonomy. It's something that's in the slave and master dialectic of how it is that in the end you find your positive content from human desire. It's really long, but essentially the slave is the one who arrives being at this autonomous, free, and historical being. Historic because of the individual's capacity for change, and change only comes about when we can transform reality, and we can only transform reality through action that actually has a consequence that modifies the external objective world to suit our individuality. So the thing about Hegel, and this is the paper that I just wrote for my finals, it's about the transcendental logic whereby there's actually an interplay between structural logic and the structure of the subject. Something that I really relied on was Zizek's Less Than Nothing, and the way he describes it is that as soon as a subject is posed or opposed an object, and this is the most basic form of truth in terms of adequation between intellect and object, but also phenomenological, as in like how the object appears to the subject. But essentially, it is not only that this opposition is just an object and a subject and you recognize it, but there's an interplay between the structural makeup of the subject in terms of a logical being or a being that is a product of logic and the outside world. So you would imagine that if the object in front of me has a structure, what Zizek says is that once you recognize this opposition in and of itself makes the subject go back and question its internal structure. And by recognizing a contradiction from this opposition, the subject is changed in a way or elevated in a way. So that is just a very brief teaser for the Hegelian dialectic, and if it comes across as something that's worth explaining further down, I will. But just to come back to this question of this is why the individual is free and historic and conscious of his individuality. So individuality here essentially is basically saying that when one's particularities or one's particularization, one's concrete being is recognized in a universal way, is recognized by other desires or other beings in the world, in our network of intersubjectivity, and if I'm not completely mistaken, fluidity or Flüssigkeit, which is essentially at once parole, which is speech, and life. It's not just like life is one side and objectivity is one side and interiority and subjectivity is one side like Descartes, or even like phenomenology in terms of Husserl. What I'm trying to avoid in this commentary is going too far into explaining everything. My goal is to just tell you what he says about desire. So let's come back to this, which continues with Le désir anthropogène diffère donc du désir animal. This form of desire differs from the animal desire, constituant un être naturel, seulement vivant et n'ayant qu'un sentiment de sa vie. Being a natural being, only living and only having the sentiment of life. So it's not just about life. It needs to be something more than just this feeling of life. And this is why the subject is different from the animal. Par le fait qu'il porte non pas sur un objet réel, positif, donné, mais sur un autre désir. By the fact that the subject is not bared upon a real positive object, you could say like food, but that it is on another desire. So another subject that is human subject, not just, a dog or cat. The idea here is that when we say like another desire, the subject is known as a desiring subject. And what is desire? Desire is this emptiness, this radical vide that we have that actually searches to fill itself with another desire by transforming this other desire, this other subject into an objective content, by two things, and this is anticipating the second video that I want to make, either through la lutte, so like the fight, which is Kampf auf Leben und Tod, so the fight to the death, which is by the master, or the slave, which is le travail, which is Arbeit. Ainsi, dans le rapport entre l'homme et la femme, par exemple, here in the relationship between a man and a woman, for example, le désir n'est humain que si l'on désire non pas le corps, mais le désir de l'autre. A desire is not a human desire if it's on the body. So the body is this objective real. It's this contingent thing that is inessential and it is accidental, but that we are actually searching for the desire of the other. S'il veut posséder ou assimiler le désir pris en tant que désir, so if it wants to possess or assimilate this desire taken as desire, c'est-à-dire s'il veut être désiré ou aimé ou bien encore reconnu dans sa valeur humaine, that is to say that if he wants to be desired, loved, or better still, to be recognized in their human value, dans sa réalité d'individu humain, in its reality of a human individual. So it's not that our desire is the desire for a body, a physical thing that is contingent, but what we actually search for in the end is to be recognized. And then when we talk about recognition, it's not any kind of recognition, but it is the recognition of our human value. Here's an excerpt with a few ducks by the sun, just so that I can explain how it is that we arrive at human value, which is in opposition to the sentiment of living, which is the animal relationship or the pure desire for life. In the first function of life, in Kampf auf Leben und Tod, which is the fight to death, two desires, two subjects, face each other seeking to transform the other into the objective content to fill their lack. The master wins. They dominate because they are willing to fight to the death. They choose prestige over the desire of life. They renounce that which characterizes the animal desire, that is, the conservation of life. The other desire chickens out. They renounce satisfying their desire and submit themselves to the master, that is the recognition of their domination, maîtrise, transforming themselves into a slave, the objective content, as they renounce their desire for recognition for their desire for life. The one who renounces life, the conservation of life, the master thus has achieved the recognition of their human value, as opposed to the one who renounces this recognition for a desire that is common to that of an animal. So how is it that we actually come to human value? De même, le désir qui porte sur un objet naturel n'est humain que dans la mesure où il est médiatisé par le désir d'un autre portant sur le même objet. So here when we say mediated, we always need this like third party that makes binary relation, un rapport binaire, into un rapport ternaire. Something that you can have like as a passage or as the difference that allows this elevation of what you were before to be something else. Because without this third party or this third thing, you can't actually have this difference that would actually enable you to transform or be different or some kind of change. But in this sense, when this is mediated, it's basically saying that this desire that you have needs to be also validated by another desire. So now you have three desires, right? A desire is B, but the thing that mediates this desire is C's desire of B. So that is how you have that another desire, which is C, another individual, desires B, which is the same object. So this is how you get the desire of another. So it's not just A and B, but it's mediated through C, who also wants B. So my desire is not directly B, but the fact that C's desire of B. I will have like a schéma somewhere so that it is more helpful. Il est humain de désirer ce qui désire les autres parce qu'il le désire. It is human to desire what others desire because they desire it. Okay. Ainsi, un objet parfaitement inutile au point de vue biologique, tel qu'une décoration ou le drapeau de l'ennemi. In this way, something that is perfectly useless in the biological point of view, such as a decoration or the flag of an enemy, peut être désiré parce qu'il fait l'objet d'autres désirs, because this object is the desire of others. So I want it because everyone else wants it. Like, I want this great job because everyone else wants it. I want to be in this great university because it's exclusive. Like, I want X, Y, and Z because it is desired and therefore valued by others in society. Un tel désir ne peut être qu'un désir humain, et la réalité humaine, en tant que différente de la réalité animale, ne se crée que par l'action qui satisfait de tels désirs. Such a desire can only be a human desire, a reality that's different from the animal reality, that can only be created or creates itself through the action that which satisfies such desires. So this is the transformative aspect. The action that satisfies such desires is, again, either Kampf, which is la lutte, the fight, the struggle of the master, and travail, which is Arbeit by the slave. And just a quick note before I finish with the last sentence, la lutte is only the first step, the first progression into what it is that we know as Arbeit. It ends for the master, according to Kojève, as une impasse existentielle, which is an existential impasse. Basically, there's no progression, there's no transformation after that. But travail is what allows us to constantly transform the world and then find our positivity. Bref, the last sentence is l'histoire humaine est l'histoire des désirs désirés. Human history is the history of desired desires. So that is how we go from monde naturel, the natural world, to monde de technique, world of technique. And this obviously anticipates what we would read or understand from Heidegger. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to work on my next video. It's going to be on human action and how it leads to freedom. I'll talk to you soon.